Thanks for tuning in again to more NASCAR coverage on Prime Sports NASCAR as we recap what took place in Martinsville. Unfortunately, it did not occur on a Saturday night. That's NASCAR for you. And we'll preview another short track race at Richmond back to Sunday. So, CJ, we have our co-host with us once again. He decided to take that second week off.
I am jealous of him being able to be at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the test, though. Worthy time off.
How was that, Eric?
It was good. It felt weirdly enough like May because it was nice here in Indy. It was in the 70s, 80 on Friday. Had a little bit of rain on Thursday, which made it feel like May. And it made everything feel like May. In fact, I saw one of our local weathermen tweet out like a next week's weather forecast. And I caught myself sitting in the media center like, okay, now what days do I need to look at for practice and rain? And so I'm like, well, wait a minute, what am I talking about? It's April. We're not coming back next week. So it felt normal. It felt good to be back. And hopefully we're back next month for the 500.
So when is the 500? May what? Okay, so the end of May. Okay, so more than enough time.
Yeah.
And is there going to be anything different this year for the 500 compared to years past?
I hope not. Right now, no. It's going to be the same old. But they're just working on how many fans and how can they get the max amount of fans that they're allowed to get in. So they still don't know that number yet. It's partially because the whole NCAA tournament was played here few weeks ago, and they're waiting for all those numbers to come back and see if the cases rise, positivity rate rise, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So far, our positivity rate has grown a whole %, but how truthful is it's the old algorithm between that and vaccines. It's like, what does it really matter? Just everybody else is opening. Why can't this track? You can't host every other sporting event and any event with fans and then go behind closed doors here. Doesn't make sense. So I think they're just trying to work out the details on how many you can get.
I get a kick out of when you watch some of these sporting events. Like, I think, what was it? I was watching is either baseball or basketball, and there was an argument with the coach, and the coach comes up to the umpire, and he takes his mask down and starts starts yelling.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mean, seriously, what are we doing here? Really? What are we doing?
It doesn't make any sense. I'll be fully honest. It's April 14th. I'm not vaccinated, and I have talked to people in person since last year. In fact, I talked to somebody in IndyCar high up, didn't even have his mask on. So what is the difference between now and later if you try to use the vaccine card? So I don't say, what are we doing here? Like, can we just get back to normal? Like, what's the difference?
They don't want to give up their
I
power.
just don't get
That's the problem. Yeah,
that's the struggle. That's right now. I feel like the Texas Rangers. I think that's another thing.
I mean, they had to sell out.
So
we'll find out if there was any sort of rash of.
That's going to be,
and there's not going to be.
It took one team to do that, and we'll see what the numbers in a couple weeks look like. Because if there's no spikes, I mean, NASCAR in a few weeks is going to open the garage to some sponsor people. It's not going to be many people. But they're slowly starting to trickle in. It's just we're using the mask and the vaccines. It's like, can we stop that talk and let's just get back to a normal without politicizing this kind of stuff? It's like, who's going to take this? Who's going to take that step? And that's where it's going to be different. I'm hopeful. I muted all the words on social media, so I don't see much anymore. It's been much happier in my life without it.
Last week it was looking like things were going to be pretty happy for all three of us, but it ended up really being happy for CJ as his driver stole the win, leading the last 20 laps when Denny Hamlin led 276 laps. This is exactly what happened to Kyle Larson against Ryan Blaney, basically. So here's the dilemma that NASCAR has, is that they have these long races. And they figured, well, we have to do something to break it up. And maybe they also felt that it was important that when specific drivers did dominate the first couple of parts of the race, that they would get something in return, and stage points. And it does help to have some excitement at the end of some of these races that are pretty boring. When you get to the end of the race and you find, can the leader who's been dominating, can he get past late? And you get a little bit of drama there. So we have that. What would you guys rather have? Would you guys rather have shorter races and no stages? Because if you have the shorter races, you don't need the stages anymore. So shorter races, and the possibility, though, if it's a shorter race, if a car does dominate, then that's it. He dominates, he wins, it's over, like the old times. Or do you think it's better this way?
I want to go back to shorter races, or not back to shorter races. I want to get away from the stages. I wasn't a fan of bringing them in to begin with. I've agreed with you throughout the years. I think the races here in NASCAR are too long. I think they did a good job in limiting any new races that come on the calendar to 400 miles, except for very special instances. But I think even still, it should be closer to, 300, 310, make it a 500K race, something like that. They just get long and dragged out, and the stage points, I don't know that it necessarily spices anything up other than potentially the championship. You have more championship intrigue when you get later on in the season for those guys that are right around the cut line to need to get those stage points. So that becomes a little bit more interesting to me. But aside from that, I'm a traditionalist. I like the go out and race. It's, however many laps, do whatever strategy you've got, and then work the cars, work the rules, work the tires, to make the on-track product more interesting. I don't think messing with the lap distance or the race distance is the way to go. I think you got to focus on the tires and focus on the rules package just to make it on track.
Eric, again, and look, we've seen this many times where a driver dominates, and yet because it's a long race, he loses a race he should not have lost. But hey, it's a certain amount of laps, and you have to be able to, and I get that, but come on, let's be real. I mean, it's just how long can one car dominate for? Sooner or later, it's just now he's going to lose something from his car and someone will steal the race. We've seen that for years. Is that the way NASCAR wants to go?
I think it's kind of a twofold thing. Like, I agree with 100% with CJ. I feel NASCAR, and we've talked about this with drivers the last few years, should there only be like 400 or 500 mile races, like your crown jewels? Those are your protected Daytona 500, like the Bristol night race isn't 500 miles, maybe. It's 500 laps, 600. Yeah, leave those alone. Everything else, I feel like 300 miles is their wheelhouse because you can use the kilometers and keep the 500 name in it, but it's 500K, which is about 312 miles depending on the track. So you can do that, but I also feel I kind of like how the end of these races at least gives us some the drama, or Hamlin was going to run away with it. Larson was going to run away with it. But I also wonder if you take the stage cautions out, how many drivers, if you just wave the stage, the green and white checkered, but you keep going, do we have to stop? Can't we just keep going? How many cars would that leader in turn put a lap down? So maybe it's more of an advantage for them that maybe that car chasing them down's already been a lap down and they can't catch back up. Maybe that's a factor. I also think a factor is I like this no practice thing because let's go back. If we had practice, I don't think Denny Hamlin, does he lead 400 laps of the 500 because he led that good or that many laps? And he said the only thing hurting him was long run pace. That's what they kept talking about. And he admitted that, yeah, I didn't have the long run car to hold people off. Same thing with Larson and Atlanta. He didn't have the long run pace to sustain from the front of a run to the end of a run. The tires fall off. But if they had practice, they would be able to dial their car in and they would know they could make the changes. Like Hamlin was asked Sunday, was there anything you can do? We all knew from early on he didn't have a long run car. That was obvious. And he said you can't do those changes in a race. It would have to be done in the garage. So if you give them practice, does that stink the show up because these guys therefore have the best cars? You're not seeing any passing. So I feel like if you're going to go long races, we can't have any practice because at least it adds the intrigue at the end. It's better to short races distances for the future. But in the meantime, until we get to that point, if we keep the stages, can we at least just, the flag's already got green in it, it's green checkered. Can we keep going? Can we just keep the race flowing? Because 4-hour races are way too long. 3.5-hour race. I mean,
the advantage
it got so bad Sunday.
The one advantage the stage breaks have is that sometimes these races have no cautions. And it's like, you got to have some sort of stoppages to give some other drivers a shot somehow. Otherwise, it gets even worse. Yep. And there's more of a dominating effect. So there's that. I mean, look, I would prefer not to have the stages. That's the only good thing I like about the stages, is that at least it helps my driver if he needs a stop and he needs to kind of figure out a way to manipulate himself back up to the lead.
Yeah, and that helps. They look at for the fan engagement. You go to a ball game, you got end of quarters, end of innings, between innings, you could go to the bathroom, go to the concession stand, take a break. You don't miss much. That's what their intent is by this, but you can also think of it as a competitive advantage or disadvantage, depending on the driver. So I don't know if there's a real win on it yet. I think it's interesting. You get the playoff point for winning it because you got a driver like Denny Hamlin, who's not yet won this year, but at least he's got 3 playoff points by winning stages.
Have you done the math yet?
Because we know
as
playoff
far
points.
As how the stage points have affected championships?
I haven't. From what it sounds like, it doesn't do much because the same guys are typically up front anyways.
What does it help? I mean, more than anything
in the playoffs, no. For a 26 race regular season, not really. In the playoffs, yes, it could. In the round per se, you can look at stage points. I have done that, and yes, there has been times. If you look at the guys in the playoffs and you look at the playoff standings and you look at their stage points, it's typically in order. It typically is, yep, I could see. But in retrospect, those guys are also getting the better starting spots, the better cars. They're running in the top 12, top 10 most of the time anyways. So it kind of works itself out per se. It doesn't really change a whole lot. The playoff points, I would say, is the bigger aspect because the more you got in your bank, the farther you can use in the playoffs. But that's just for the stage win. That doesn't mean 2nd through 9th. So factor, I would say, is maybe take away the stage points and give more playoff points for a stage win to maybe intrigue it a little bit. But other than that, I don't know how much value stage points bring right now.
What was the difference in total points in this race from Hamlin and Truex?
I don't have the box score in front of me, but I don't think it was much.
Truex had 47. Hamlin had... Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Truex had 56. Hamlin had 52.
Okay. So Truex, who won the race, only had 4 more points than Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, and you could go to cases where the winner might have the 3rd or 4th most points scored of the whole day. Yes, they won. Yes, they got the trophy. Yes, they got the winner's money, which isn't much different than anything else to the charters now. But what you fail to look at is 2nd, 3rd, 4th could have more points, and does that matter more sometimes? So, yeah, I mean, I think Truex finished 3rd in both stages, and Hamlin finished 2nd. So that was your difference. If Truex was a little bit further back, Hamlin probably outscores him.
DJ and I were talking about that last week when you had your first win. When you won a race in our fantasy league and won the week, because you had won a race with one of your drivers and lost the points for the week. So it's the same thing. You know, you just because you win the race doesn't mean you're going to win the week. So,
no.
And look, the driver that really got screwed was Ryan Blaney, because Ryan Blaney, without a caution, wins the race. So he's about to pass Hamlin. No more cautions. He's gone. He's probably going to win by 3 or 4 seconds. That's the way that was going. And then, just like we've seen from Blaney's pit crew the last year or two, he comes in the pits and they screw it up for him.
Every time. It seems like that's their MO. Even when they switch pit crews, they switched last year, and he's still. It's almost there's no real easy way to ask him the question without sounding like a complete the D word. It's like, hey, why does every pit crew you have seem to always have an issue?
Yeah,
is
right?
it you? It's like, what is it? But yeah, I feel bad for him. He would have won that race. That would have been. I mean, hey, that's 5 playoff points he just lost out on. I mean, the finish doesn't matter to him because he's already in the playoffs. It's those playoff points. He would have had the 2 for the stage wins and then 5 more. That would have been 7 playoff points for the day, but he gave him the Truex. So now Truex got 5 more playoff points. That's big.
Yeah, your drivers this week, Eric, even though you finished second with Hamlin, you finished in second, third, fourth, and sixth. So your drivers had a good week, but you made a change.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Chastain is gone.
Dumped. Yeah, I'm shocked. I don't know if you are, what you think about that, CJ, but I expected a little more out of him this year. I thought he would. He just seems like another guy out there, which to me was a little weird. You almost forget he's in the race. There's times I see the 42, I'm like, oh gosh, I forgot about Chastain.
Why did you think he was going to have a better year?
So with Ganassi, that was the car Larson did so well in, and I felt like he did such a good job in Xfinity and trucks that it would translate well over. I mean, he's given him the best car he's ever had, that I thought that would translate to. Wasn't necessarily thinking top 5s, but I thought top 15 driver was what I thought I thought he'd maybe have to win to make the playoffs, but in the grand scheme of things, a top 20 overall standings, most weeks top 15. That's what I expected, but he's like an afterthought. You don't really see him a whole lot, and Reddick, I expected him to be in the playoffs this year, so I thought, well, Chastain's not doing much. I thought he could maybe sneak a win with a Ganassi car and being aggressive, but I feel like Reddick's
he's got back-to-back top 10, so it's a good time to take Reddick to see if he can keep that pace going. But you decided Chastain instead of Almirola. Now Almirola's been the big loser for you.
Oh, he's been terrible this year. I just feel in a Stewart-Haas car, they got the resources to eventually figure it out. I just feel like some of his things have been bad luck. He's been caught up in crashes not of his doing. A pit road issue. It's always been a luck thing. And Stewart-Haas as a whole, yes, they're lacking a little bit this year, but they've got the resources to eventually turn this around. And he's a veteran on that team. So other than Harvick, if there's the other guy that's going to benefit, it's him. So I'm going to hold on a little bit longer. Plus, Talladega's next Sunday, and he's good there. I feel if I would have let him go, he definitely would have won Talladega. So I'm going to hold on a little longer.
By the way, CJ and I talked about this last week. How about, and he made it through another week, how about that the only other driver who doesn't have a finish of 20th or worse this season is Ricky Stenhouse Jr., besides Denny Hamlin?
He's on fire. Yeah, I like what they're doing. He's what? Plus 16, plus 15. He's comfortably in the playoff. Granted, it's still early, so things could fluctuate, but he's solidly in right now, and we haven't even hit Talladega. What is he?
He's up 12 and 14th position ahead of Chris Buescher and Kurt Busch.
Yeah, he's there. I think the way things are playing, I was going to write about this in my monthly into like the recap articles that we're getting to the point where we probably start talking about playoff standings once you get yearly to the 600, that you're halfway through the regular season, and which guys not in the top 16 can move their way in. And he's going to be a tough guy to bump out right now. These top 15s, and it seems like he's right around stage points every time to keep him there. Who knows what he can do at Talladega, but they've really improved their stuff, and I'd like to see. They're aligned with Hendrick, so he's got good cars. But I'd like to see what he can do at Talladega next week with the way he's running, and we know that's his best track. He's definitely one to watch out for.
And by the way, the other one, and they both happen to be on my team, but that's the only good thing I going from in my fantasy teams, is that Chris Buescher, after his Daytona 500 result, whatever it was, he's probably involved in a wreck, has 7 straight top 20s.
He's there. You probably can't see my old chicken scratch because I don't know. Well, it just cut me off, so I won't show it. I've got the 550 package and the 750 package. I rate every driver in their finishes this year. Hand wrote it. And Buescher on the 550 package, he was 19th in Homestead, but remember he was running really. It was just that final restart or in the final stage of restart got some damage and faded. 14th in Vegas was respectable for them, and then 7th in Atlanta. So that 550 package, they're pretty good. And they said they put a lot of emphasis that in the offseason. So Talladega, we know Roush is good at. You got Kansas coming up, and you got the 600 next month. So I think Buescher can get you some big points here over, I'd say, the course of the next 5-6 weeks. You're there.
Yeah, I'm going to need it.
So don't be shocked if he steals a one. Yeah, he could.
All right, let's talk about this week's race. And that is at Richmond, Toyota Owners 400. And Truex is going to try to do what he did at Martinsville, which was, he's got a couple of wins in his last 3 coming in, and then he wins to go 3 out of 4. And that's what he's going to try to do here, because in his last 4 races, second, first, and third, he's led 970 laps in his last 8 races combined. That's 121 a race. He's the first 2-time winner of the season. He was second in this race last year, even though he didn't lead a lap. But maybe more importantly, if you're looking at and you put your track trends together, and we've talked about this whenever we have talked about Richmond the last couple of years, which is, even though it's not a short track, Phoenix flat like Richmond, Truex won Phoenix this year, and that's the reason why both you guys put some serious money on Martin Truex Jr. I just stayed away because I need to try to roll the dice and make a little bit of money on some other drivers. But CJ, you've got Truex, and you've got more money on Truex than any other driver from you and Eric combined. Second most from any of us this week. But you have to do it when he's 4-1.
I was going to say at 4-1, I didn't really have much choice, and I didn't want to just cover my bet on him because I think he's got a very high likelihood of winning. 6 of his last 8 Richmond races, he's led over 100 laps. And I mean, with his short track, flat track pace that he's showing right now, I mean, he's up there. He's going to be a contender. And yeah, he came kind of out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but he came from behind to win or steal a race last week. He was very strong in the trucks at Bristol as well. Another short track, looked good in the Cup Series when you got there too. So I have no doubt in my mind that heading to Richmond, a track that races a lot like Phoenix and is another short track, a place that he's dominated, that he's going to be a really strong contender. And I think, Eric, I think you put just money on him to get even. I wasn't comfortable just getting even with him this week because I really think he can come out and win.
CJ,
the only thing
wants to make about $30.
It was tough. CJ, I had CJ's voice back in my mind from like, guys don't win 2 races in a row very often. Truex, I don't think he's ever won 2 in a row.
Interesting.
So I'm like, dude, I'm just going to go make my money back. But yeah, 11 of his first 19 Cup wins are on 1.5-mile tracks. 7 of his last 10 are on short tracks. Like, he's now the new short track king. And you look at the odds. I mean, what I like about this week too, it's a day race, not a night race. And Phoenix was a day. It's going to run very similar to Phoenix. It's going to be, and Richmond's already a slick track in general. That's how the track was made. But now you're going to throw sunlight on it. I haven't looked at the weather forecast to see if it's sunny or cloudy or not, but it's going to make it slicker. And Truex won Phoenix on a track like that. So I think you got a lot of trends this week that it's starting. I was waiting to see what this week ends up before I update some more track trends. But the 750 package, we've seen the same drivers and the same 750 races this week do the same thing. It's just been almost identical. I think 4 of the top 5 at Phoenix finished 4 in the top 5 last week. Even throwing the Roval at Daytona was this package. It was similar too. So, and Truex has been good at all of them. That's the common denominator. So it was scared me a little bit of his odds that like, I can't bet as much on elsewhere, but I feel like he is the favorite. So I at least just put money to get my money back just in case. But yeah, he's never won a race back-to-back before. So that's the other factor, but he's just too good right now to overlook.
And we actually forgot to mention the whole, again, just don't understand NASCAR's thinking when it came to trying to get the race in last Saturday night. It made no sense. It's like, are you looking at the radar we're looking at? What are you doing? It does. I mean, do they have anybody asking them these questions? Is the answer, well, we just want whoever is at the race to have a little action or something? Because that's just stupid. I'm sure they'd rather just know hours in advance to just go home and you can get back here tomorrow.
Yep.
What on earth were they thinking trying to race last Saturday night?
Here's the other factor, and this is in the rule book. It is a rule from NASCAR, which helps the TV providers and fans. If it looks like you can't get the whole race in from start to finish, not the halfway, start to finish, you don't start it.
And it's in the rule
That's
book.
the rule. It's in the rule book. And so what were they thinking? Like, I was watching, I kept seeing the radar, and I kept getting reports from the track. It's like, oh, they're drying it's almost dry. They're pulling the car covers off. And then I'm watching the video, their live feed on the media site, and I'm like, that pit road looks soaked. Like, what are they talking about? They're not going to fire these in. And then I got the update that, oh, they're firing the engines at 8:57. What? And then I'm like, there's no way you're going to, like, this goes against the rules that you had. And then 42 laps into it, it just gets put out of its misery. It's like, what? You wasted. To me, too, the other factor is those cars going around there aren't free. You got to pay for their fuel. You got to pay for the cars to go around there. How much fuel are you wasting by sending jet dryers and air Titans and safety vehicles to dry a track that you know damn well it's about to rain again? It just doesn't make any sense. So Sunday's weather forecast was beautiful. I don't know why you just 7:30 were like, look, it's not going to work. We're going to go ahead and wait.
All right, you know it's coming Sunday, and then we're starting at 4:00. So I got to wait all day
you see
4:00 to watch the race.
Did you see my tweet? I tweeted that Denny Hamlin liked it, and it went like 500 likes, like 300 comments. Like, it was crazy that I put, like, because what didn't make sense, again, we're in the COVID era, that you can't have intermingling between series. So the Cup pit boxes, everything's set up, everything's already there, the haulers are there, the cars are there. So you made each team tear everything down, load it up in the hauler, drive off in another parking lot, wait out there, let the Xfinity guys come back in, set their stuff up, run their race, tear their stuff down, drive themselves out, bring the Cup guys back in to turn around and reset back up. That doesn't make any sense to me when everything's already set up. Like, why? And the TV window's already there. The Xfinity guys are starting at noon. Why could we try a noon start for a change? It was already there. And even Denny Hamlin liked it and was like, I agree. Like, he agreed. I said all this fan base, like, I agree with you. I agree with it. It's like, can you look at my this random tweet right here? Look at I got nobody complaining that a 4:00 start, like, or agreeing with the 4:00 start. Everybody's on the same page. And it's like, do you not see this? Like, this can't be that, like,
either
blind.
There's
like,
something
how can you be so
that
blind?
they just aren't telling us, and obviously it's money related, so they're not going to tell us.
Yep.
Or, I'm sorry, because we have seen people lead businesses into the ground, and they just don't know what they're doing. So it's one or the other. Either there's something that they know we don't know, or they need somebody else in charge.
Well, it hurts the fans watching on TV, and it hurts those at the track, because I knew people there that were, hey, I've got a 7-hour drive home, and the race doesn't even start till 4. So I'm not getting home till well after midnight, or I've got other people. I saw.
Oh.
Did we lose him?
He'll be back. We can't keep him off. He was on a roll. You can pick up his point, CJ.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I with you, both of you actually. I mean, the 12:00 window was there. When I saw when the reschedule was for Sunday, I was completely taken aback because you had the.
Has to be.
starts or whatever, or 3:30 TV time and a 4 o'clock green flag. They've been pushing that for a couple of years, and I've not seen a single comment on Twitter anywhere aside from just the the talking heads on like races that are actually employed by the networks or by NASCAR. Nobody says anything positive about it. Everybody wants an earlier start time so they can get on with their day and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's just bad. But again, there's got to be a method to their madness, but it's just not good PR anyway. They're not making anybody happy.
Yeah.
So, even though they may be making some additional money from it, they have to change that. They have to figure out another way to make money, because that's not the right way. All right. So Eric's computer crashed, so hopefully he'll be back with us before the end of the show. I have to juggle the sound though, because as soon as Eric jumps off, because it's interesting the way we have everything set up when you guys call in. Is remember when we did the first test and I couldn't hear you? Well, actually I could. I was getting the feedback from Eric, so I have to mute one of your lines. So what happened is when Eric drops off, I was noticing, and lucky I looked at it, I was noticing, well, wait a second, I don't see the levels here while CJ's talking, meaning when you were talking for this first 30 seconds, it wasn't coming over the air. So because I had it muted. On one of the lines. For whatever reason, when Eric dropped off, it decided to hold one line that was muted, but I was able to get you back on. So when Eric calls back, I have to juggle that as best I can. But let's try to get into as much as we at least can here. I tell you what, let's talk about some of the other, because there's not going to be a lot of long shots as usual, especially at a track like this. But your fantasy driver, who's already had an excellent season. It's interesting, and maybe it's because you have him on your team that you decided not to put any money on him to win the race, but both Eric and I put money on Christopher Bell to win the race this week. And why not? He's 25-1, and he has 3 Xfinity wins while leading 457 laps in the Xfinity Series. So he was 9th at Phoenix, and he seems to have his mojo back again. This is a nice little long shot, Christopher Bell this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think his odds are really good, and taking him at those odds pretty much any week, I would definitely recommend people go and do it. For me, it was just a matter of shifting funds around. Obviously, I wanted to make something if Truex were to win, and I wanted to find a way to get at least one long shot in particular onto my choices this week. But yeah, Christopher Bell's been having a fantastic season, 3 top 10s just in the last 5 races. He obviously crashed out at Bristol. I think he could have done better. That would have been a missed opportunity for him. The only other one was Atlanta, where he was 21st, but 7th at Martinsville, 7th at Las Vegas, 9th at Phoenix. So he's going to be a top 10 guy this weekend, no doubt. And at those odds, to get somebody who's top 10, who's already got a win under his belt, especially somebody that's got the experience of Xfinity at this track like he does, definitely one that you're going to want to take this week for sure.
Yeah, because again, I don't think there's a driver, one of these young drivers, that has more success in the Xfinity Series at one track than Christopher Bell does at Richmond in the Xfinity Series. That would be true, right? You can't think of anybody come on, 3 wins.
Yeah,
that's just and not just the 3 wins, but the 457 laps. I mean, that combined is pretty impressive. But it is the Cup Series, so a little bit different. But at least the experience tells us that he knows how to win at Richmond. And then the only long shot you have is the driver that I have as well, Austin Dillon, at 33-1. He's been 6th or better in 3 of his last 4 races at Richmond, including 4th last year when he led 55 laps. And he does have 7 top 10s in 10 Xfinity Series races at Richmond as well. So that is your lone long shot, Austin Dillon at 33-1.
Yeah, he's the one that I definitely wanted to get in my picks this week. Richmond has been a fantastic track for him, and he's doing really pretty good, I think, this season so far. I mean, 13th in the standings. He's got 6th place from Atlanta. He didn't do so well on the dirt in Bristol, 21st, but he got back into the top 15 again last week at Martinsville. So, I mean, when you couple that with how he's been this couple of years here at Richmond with a sixth, and then 22nd, but then coming back last year, finishing 4th and leading 55 laps. I mean, that's a really good record for him. Richard Childress has definitely taken a step forward in terms of the equipment that they're putting on the track this season. And I think that that's obviously why Eric thinks that Reddick's going to be a playoff contender as we get to the end of the year. And I think Dillon certainly is as well. Dillon's right there in contention already, so no reason that he won't be easily a top 15. I think it would be disappointing if he didn't come away with the top 10. And with short tracks and the way NASCAR racing goes with the yellows, you never know. If he gets in the right spot on a late restart, he's certainly going to be there, one to watch and capable of getting forward and taking the win.
Bowman, that is one of the long shots, one of the other long shots Eric took. He has 2 long shots, Bell and Bowman. Bowman at 33-1. I was a little surprised he went with Bowman here. All right, he has 9th last year, so that was his best finish, and it was last year. And he has been racing better, but he's just encountered so many issues over the past 5 or 6 races. He's just had all sorts of issues, Bowman. If he could avoid issues, he might have some additional top 10s.
Yeah, I agree. I think last week was one where I thought he could pick up on the momentum or at least extend the momentum that he had picked up earlier with a 3rd place at Atlanta and a 13th at Phoenix. So he was starting to get his legs under him, kind of stumbled a little bit, not unexpected. That's a wild card race, but he could have come back and had a top 15 at Martinsville. But you're right, for something's off, the luck isn't there. And with just the 1 top 10 at Martinsville coming from last year, given his current momentum and current performance, and I just didn't feel comfortable going with him 2 weeks in a row here. Maybe next week, if he comes back and gets another top 15 finish, he'll be one to look at, but I was surprised I chose him as well.
Now, I threw in 3 long shots. Newman, Reddick, I put a buck on those guys at 66-1. I just did Newman because he's got 4 top 10s in his last 7 at Richmond. He's also racing a little bit better this year than last year so far. And Reddick, as we mentioned, Eric decided to pick him up on his fantasy team. He comes in on back-to-back top 10s. He was 11th in his first Cup race here last year. And then I figured, at least for another race, I'll throw a couple of bucks on Suarez because he actually has a decent history here with 3 top 10s in his career. But look, that was just more of, hey, if they get lucky, right timing, all that kind of stuff. And also a little bit of history and a little bit of the drivers that are just performing pretty well above expectations at this point. Out of those 3, who would you take? Newman, Suarez, or Reddick?
It tells me to go with Reddick, to be honest with you, with the 11th place finish in his only kart. But my heart would go with Suarez. I think, like you said, the top 10s that he's had here in the past with Gibbs and Stuart Haas, he's had a good career here. And, the car that he's got with the partnership that they have, they're pretty strong. And this is a place where equipment can be minimized, or the differences between equipment and budgets can be minimized. Most short tracks, and then obviously the super speedways, you get that. And then to some extent also the road courses. So I would think if I was to go with my heart, I would go with Suarez. He's got a bigger upside potential. Certainly all 3 of them, for all the reasons that you stated, are extremely good values as them.
Another, not a long shot, but somewhere in between, William Byron. Eric put 8 on Byron at 18-1, and why not? He's got 6 straight top 10s. He just continues to throw out top 10s, but he doesn't have a career yet at Richmond. That's the reason why I just didn't feel like this would be a good week to take him. He's never had a top 10, and he's never led a lap.
Yeah, he and his team are really clicking right now, and that's good to see. But like you said, he's not done anything in the past at Richmond. He has 2 top 10 starts, and last year was a top 5 start. He started fifth, ended up 21st, 2 laps down. So I think the team is hitting on all cylinders, but I think it's got to be more of the right track for him to be able to be a true selection for me. I was a little bit surprised Eric took him well, but not a bad choice by any stretch of the imagination. He's 10, top 12 kind of guy each and every week. I think for him to win, though, it's going to come someplace other than Richmond.
And the other driver is in the middle there that nobody took, and we shouldn't, because it's his nemesis track, and that's Blaney. And it's really surprising. We said this last year, why he can't race better at a racetrack that his teammates have thrived on. He doesn't have a top 15 in 9 races, and in I think it's 14 professional races between the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. He's never led a lap. I mean, this is just, I don't understand. Now, Kyle Busch had, Kansas, I believe, at one time was his nemesis track, and he turned that around. So maybe at some point Ryan Blaney will turn it around at Richmond.
Yeah, watch it be this week. He's going to turn it around here at some point, but you're right. I noticed that when I was writing about him following last week's race, this is just a terrible track for him in every category possible. Finishing on the lead lap is he has a hard time doing that. He hasn't done that since the beginning of 2018. He crashed out once when he started on the front row here. His best finish is 17th, and that was in the fall race of 2019. He was 19th here last year, never led a lap. Even with as well as he was racing last week, he's still a really rough choice for me to put anything on him this week. We'll see what he does. That's probably the recipe for him to have a great race, though.
All right, well, we'll see. Now, the one favorite that we all have, actually, is the only driver we have all agreed upon this week, again, like last week, is Denny Hamlin. And I put almost half of my money on Hamlin this week. I just think, look, he's got to win one of these weeks. And this is another good track for him. He's led over 1,700 laps. He's got 3 wins, 13 top 5s, and 28. That's almost 50%. Same type of stats he had at Martinsville. 6th or better in 8 of his last 10 with a win. The only thing, he only has led 51 laps in his last 6, with 45 of those coming last year. But he was kind of had the same history at Martinsville, where he hadn't had a win, I think, 19 races, I think. And he almost won that, dominated.
Yep.
So that's the way I'm looking at it this week. He's just racing too well, too consistent this season. Sooner or later, he's going to have a win.
Yeah, momentum is everything right now. And 2 weeks now in a row, you've pointed out that he finished outside the top 20. He and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's had a fantastic run of results, and the top 5s, top 10s just keep coming. He is pulling away from everybody in the points. It's really surprising he doesn't have it. Like you said, Richmond's a good spot for him. 6 times he's led over 100 laps at that track, and I think it's 28 career starts, if I'm not mistaken. And the last 5 races, period, including the dirt race on Bristol, he hasn't finished worse than 4th. I mean, that's an unbelievable streak of 5s, top 10s. He's racing extremely well. He's going to win. I'm pretty confident it's going to be this week between him and Truex. It's probably going to be 1-2. It'd be cool if Hamlin can get his win this week, because he certainly deserves it based on how he's been running so far this year. Led 45 laps this year. And
like we said last week, you have to take advantage of it, because you're not going to, this momentum will leave you sooner or later. And when it does, you're going to be, man, I can't believe I couldn't get a win when I was hot. Now, Keselowski 6-1 and Logano 7-1, Blaney's teammates that we talked about. You and Eric took Keselowski. Me and you, we both took Logano. And so you have both of them. You're the only one out of the 3 of us that have both Keselowski and Logano. And it's interesting how similar they are. They have both been, in their last 13 races, 11th or better in 12 of their last 13 races with 2 wins. It's like you're talking about the same driver. Keselowski had one of his wins in 2014 leading 383 laps. Logano hasn't had that type of lap history of Keselowski at the time of dominance, but he does have a couple of wins too. Most recently, 2017. And he won Phoenix last year, Logano. He was second at Phoenix this year and third last year at Richmond, Logano was. Keselowski's the defending champ of this race, leading 192 laps. I jumped off Keselowski just because of the way things have gone for him lately. 33rd, 11th, and 28th in his last three races.
Yeah, I can understand doing that. And I had questions in the back of my head as well, but Keselowski at Richmond for me is a must pick. So he was automatically on my list of names that I wrote down right away. 192 laps. Led, like you said, last year, finished first. He's got the 2 wins. I think his luck has got to turn around because he's still got speed. It's been bad luck that's been biting him. He was on par with Logano earlier in the season. Logano just hasn't had the same kind of bad luck. Logano wasn't one of the names that I instantly wrote down, but as I thought about it and as I looked at what he did in comparison to Keselowski, 45 lap and finished third at this track last year, plus the fact, like you said, that he was so good at Phoenix. I had to figure out a way to get him in and ended up Kyle Busch. I was going to go take a swing on Kyle Busch, but ended up putting Logano in his spot just because of those 45 laps led. Third place finish. He raced well at Phoenix. He's not having the bad luck that Keselowski's having, so maybe he can come in and get another win this week.
And speaking of Kyle, look, I'm kind of taking your advice from last week that I've got to start seeing Kyle up at the front because this is a great track for him. At 8-1, those are good odds. 18 top 5s and 6 wins in 30 races. It's just incredible. 9 top 10s in his last 10, 3 runner-ups and 2 wins. He's led over 200 laps 4 separate times at this racetrack. But the 25th at Phoenix this year is one of those signs that I'm like, I'm going to wait. But I'm not waiting on Chase Elliott. I'm surprised I'm the only one out of the 3 of us that took Chase. Now, I don't really care about what happened in the win necessarily at Phoenix last year because we know it was basically a 4-driver race. But he did win the race, and he was 5th at Phoenix this year. And he's coming off a strong second-place finish. You know, he got stronger as the race went on, and a very quiet second-place finish last week. So at 8-1, I figured he was a bargain.
Yeah, without question, I would go with Chase Elliott over Kyle Busch this week. And if I had more money to spend, Chase Elliott would be on my list and in my picks. I think he's racing extremely well this year. He's another one that I would say that he doesn't have a win yet. I think he's had some unfortunate circumstances and hasn't really come out and dominated like some of the other guys have. Kyle Busch, on the other hand, he was one that when I wrote down, I was thinking of before the odds came out for Richmond, he was one that was on there. It's really hard not to take him given his history here. But again, just remembering Kyle last week, and I still feel the same this week. If he's not going to be able to come to the front at Richmond and lead laps and confidently finish inside probably the top 3, not even the top 5, he's got to really lead laps, and he's got to be in the top 3 for me to start really thinking about him again for picking a winner. If he can't do it this week at Richmond, I think we're in for another very long struggling season with Kyle Busch. I think he's struggling a little bit, just not having the pace. I want to see him get up front before I take him, despite the fact that he's been so good at Richmond. I had to erase his name. I can't take him this week.
Absolutely. We got to see something out of Kyle, and we got to see something from Kevin Harvick as well, because none of us took Kevin Harvick at 10-1. He's been 7th or better in 8 of his last 9 races at this racetrack. Yeah. He does have 3 wins, but it's just something with Kevin Harvick right now. But 10-1, it's a good number. You know, I mean, maybe we're going to feel pretty stupid if he wins this race and we lost an opportunity to get Kevin Harvick at 10-1.
Well, 10-1 for Harvick is, generally speaking, it's very enticing, except for this season. 3 top 10s in the last 4 races. He's another one that you expect to be on the winners list already by now. He hasn't been out leading laps. He's only led 28 laps this entire season, and that includes 11 races in the duel. He hasn't led a single lap since the Daytona 500. So Kevin Harvick is another one like Kyle Busch that he's got to finish in the top 5 consistently every single week, and he's got to be out there leading laps and showing that he can win. Otherwise, he's just another top 10 contender that is going to have to rely on circumstances outside of his control to win. And that's why you're getting 10-1. And for guys like Harvick and Kyle Busch, those are great odds, but they're just not hitting right now. Just not hitting.
Yeah, and it just shows you, though, this is a good time, and we've said this before, about to wager on NASCAR in a way, because of the fact that there are so many good drivers to choose from every week. And if you're not on, you've got to beat out Logano and Keselowski and Elliott and Hamlin and Truex. And it's like, you got to beat all those guys when you're not on. And that's the reason why guys like Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick are 8 and 10-1. Even Chase Elliott being 8-1. You're going to get good odds on 2 or 3 drivers every week now. And maybe one of these weeks, you get lucky and you zero in at the perfect time and take advantage of those types of odds, because Harvick and Kyle are definitely capable of winning the race on Sunday. And Kyle Larson, we'll wrap it up with Larson. Both you guys took Kyle Larson this week. He does have a win, but he's only registered 2 top 5s in 12 races at this racetrack with just 73 laps. And he hasn't led a lap since his 2017 win in 4 races. But both you guys put a little bit of money on Kyle Larson. Again, maybe more so because he's getting some good odds at 10-1.
Yeah, and the first time he'll be at this track in Hendrick equipment too. So every track that we go to now, he's in the best Ben at that track. So if he's any semblance of success anywhere, he's going to be one to beat. And I think that was pretty much a case at Martinsville. I mean, he started 19th, raced all the way to 5th. He didn't lead any laps, but he's a top 5 guy every single week. And that's the kind of racing that we need to see out of a Kyle Busch or out of a Kevin Harvick in order to start choosing him. And until Kyle Larson stops doing that and Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch start doing that, I'm going to be choosing Kyle Larson every single week over those guys. Kyle Larson's got more potential. I think he's a true championship contender. He's getting more settled every single week. I mean, Martinsville is a track position track. He started 19th and finished 5th. So he comes forward. He was on his way forward on the Bristol dirt. Unique circumstances, I know, but he's racing extremely well. And another one like Hamlin that you got to ride it while it's there. It's not there for Harvick. It's not there for Kyle. Get on board with Hamlin. Get on board with Larson. Those are the guys. And Truex, those are the guys that you're going to want right now.
And again, obviously, Eric couldn't make his way back with the issues, so we'll have him back next week when we wrap up Richmond and preview what will hopefully be an exciting race at Talladega that will finish under green. We certainly hope so. But the way this season's going, you never know. How's everything going over at RotoWire, CJ?
RotoWire's going great. We have fantasy previews up for both Xfinity and Cup this week. And then we'll have the race recap following the Cup race on Sunday, probably post it sometime on Monday on rotowire.com.
All right, CJ, enjoy the race. Hopefully it will be a good one, because we need one. We need a good race.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll be back again next week with Eric. Don't forget, Eric's got a lot of good trends for this racetrack. Every week you can check out racereviewonline.net, and Eric does a really good job of breaking down the trends for the racetracks, the drivers, the teams that are hot over a certain period of time at these racetracks. So, and that's just a little bit of all the information you get at racereviewonline.net. For Eric Smith, CJ Verdun, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time.